There are 6 machines in contention for the 2019 MXA 450 shootout: the Honda Sierra 450, Husqvarna FC 450, Kawasaki KX450, KTM 450 SXF, Suzuki RMZ 450, and Yamaha's YZ450F. We can promise you that someone is going to win this shootout. We can also promise you that we aren't going to make everyone happy. Whether you love shootouts or hate them, you don't have to rush out and buy the 2019 MXA 450 shootout winner. Instead, listen carefully to the information presented, look closely at all 6 bikes, and then look closely at yourself, your riding style, and your real needs. Welcome to Motocross Action's 2019 450 shootout. Motocross Action is a true-to-life motorcycle magazine. Just as Bonnie and Clyde rob banks, the MXA Wrecking Crew tests bikes. We test over 45 motocross bikes a year. It's a full-time job. The sheer number of machines we ride has taught us to take a straightforward approach to racing performance. And make no mistake about it, we test by racing. Without further ado, here is the breakdown of the 2019 450 lineup. First place, KTM 450 SXF. We will be the first to tell you that the 2019 KTM 450 SXF is inferior to the 2018 450 SXF. The 2019 model has a lag-off bottom due to a closed-off airbox, and the frame is stiffer than it needs to be. Luckily, the WP 48mm AER forks are good enough to make up the difference. If you are a pro, then you will like the stiffer frame better than last year's chassis. Pros also are fast enough to jump over the tame bottom end, as they don't ride that low in the power band very often. If the 2019 model is worse than the 2018 model, why did it win? Believe us when we tell you that we didn't want it to win. We were upset that KTM royally messed up the low-end power transition, but not bad enough to knock it off the top spot. Why not? To fix the lack of bottom-end power, all you need is to drill holes in the airbox and install the quick-turn throttle cam that comes with the bike. If you already own a drill, it won't cost you a dime to bring back the low-end grunt of last year's 450 SXF. The peanut gallery likes to root for the perennial winner to lose. It's human nature. Tom Brady has enemies, the New York Yankees have enemies, and KTM has enemies. To choose any other brand as a 2019 winner would require the MXA test riders to ignore the superior brakes, bulletproof clutch, lightweight, broad power band, adjustable suspension, sleek ergonomics, and no-fuss handling. The FC 450, CRF 450, YZ 450F, KX450, and RMZ 450 will all cost you more money to fix their flaws than to make them a better overall bike than the 2019 KTM 450 SXF. If our friends or family asked us what 450cc motocross bike to buy in 2019, the KTM 450 SXF would be our answer. Like it or not, live with it. The KTM 450 SXF is a 2019 450 shootout, a winner. Second place, Husqvarna FC 450. The Husqvarna FC 450 could have won this year's shootout, but rather than making the FC 450 more distinctly different than the KTM 450 SXF it is based on, the Husky engineers made the two bikes more identical than ever. The seat is no longer square, the plastic stub frame isn't as resilient, and the airbox isn't as bulky in the rear anymore. When you sit on the orange and white bikes, they feel identical, save for the bar bend. Most MXA test riders like the feel of the Husky bar bend and the optional mat better than the 450 SXF units. The biggest difference is that the Husqvarna feels mellower, which lots of test riders liked. However, Husky didn't fix the Magura clutch problem that they had last year. The slave seal fails, forcing us to replace it with a Brembo piston from the KTM parts book. The ice cone restrictor and the muffler is a crime against humanity. It cost the FC 450 almost a full horsepower to the KTM at peak. Like on the KTM 450 SXF, we drill holes in the airbox to give it more power across the board. But we've been doing this to Husqvarnas for a few years now. We aren't conspiracy theorists, but we have to wonder if KTM Husqvarna owner Stefan Pierre isn't handicapping the Husqvarna FC 450 so it doesn't perform better than the KTM 450 SXF. If you were in Stefan Pierre's shoes, we've had the Husqvarna engineers in the hot seat explaining the mysteries of the choked up airbox, Magura components, and ice king chrome restrictor. This is a great bike if you drill out the airbox, install a Brembo sleigh piston, and add a slip-on muffler. Third place, Yamaha YZ450F. This is the best version of the YZ450F ever made. Along with its ultra durability, it has the best suspension in its class, by far. You can be slow, fast, fat, or skinny, and the YZ450F SSS components will work for you. This is the easiest bike for a racer to set up to suit their weight, speed, and style. What is most shocking about the 2019 Yamaha YZ450F is that it is basically the exact same bike that finished 4th in last year's 450 shootout. We downgraded it last year because the front end would wander, wiggle, and wag in corners. It turned in okay, but was exceedingly loose from center out, to the point of it being twitchy at speed. So, what changed our minds in 2019? Yamaha added beefier fork lugs and stronger wheel collars. Nothing else. It is the 2018 YZ450F in 2.0, but with a stiffer connection to the front wheel. It is hard to believe that such small changes would bring such a sea of change in the YZ450F steering response. Gone is the wiggle, gone is the wag, gone is the looseness on exit. This small fork lug change stiffens up the front wheel to allow it to follow the chosen path without deflection. With that problem fixed, the rest of the Yamaha YZ450F package came into focus. However, there is no getting around that it is a big bike. Tall, bulky, wide, noisy, and heavy. To make the 2019 YZ450F better, you will need 5mm lower bar mounts, aftermarket seafoam, Travis Preston map, and an air filter that doesn't beat itself to death on the backfire screen. Once you fix those things, you still have a bike that is 15 pounds heavier than the class front runner. Ask yourself, would you race your YZ450F with a 5-gallon Enduro fuel tank on it? Yes or no? Because that is what the extra 15 pounds makes the YZ450F feel like. Fourth place, Kawasaki KX450. There were moments during MXA's several-month-long 450 shootout period where the 2019 Kawasaki was the front runner for first place. It is by far the most improved bike of 2019. Every test rider enjoyed the deceivingly fast engine, light-feeling chassis, clean ergos, and nice design touches. But, and this is a big but, it is a first-year model. First-year models always have teething problems, and the more we raced the 2019 KX450, the more problems came to the surface. Those problems began to sap our enthusiasm for the Kawasaki KX450, even though we still liked it. We liked it less and less when the clutch kept burning through plates, hydraulic or not. The oversized rear brake locked up at the least opportune times, the forks bottomed because of the soft fork springs, the bottom chain roller wore out, and the airbox design was convoluted. There is one caveat to all this. If you feel you can live with the flaws, chase down solutions, and stay on top of the maintenance, then go for it. It is the lightest of the Japanese-built bikes. The 2019 Kawasaki had the potential to win the 2019 MXA 450 shootout, but it has another year of development in the cards before it can get the top spot. For $9,299, we don't want to have to be part of the Kawasaki's R&D department. They should have polished the ends of the clutch pushrod at the factory to get rid of the squeal, not us. One thing is true, if you can overlook the KX450's first year flaws, this is a great feeling motorcycle, and with a few massages at the factory, it will be worthy in 2020. Fifth place, Honda CRF 450. If this was a 125 or 250F shootout, horsepower would trump everything else. In the little bike classes, power is the most important factor in choosing a winner. However, in the 450 class, it is less important. By no means is it the least important factor, but because the numbers are so big, power placement often overrides power output. If we use the 125 250F shootout criteria on the 450 shootout, the 2019 Honda CRF 450 will be the hands down winner. For any rider that is looking for sheer power, the CRF 450 has it. It is the only 2019 450 engine to crack 60 horsepower on the dyno. Those would have been factory engine numbers just a few years ago. Best of all, Honda didn't give up usability to reach for the sky. The 2019 Honda CRF 450 produces great power from bottom to top. If you are a pro rider, the 2019 Honda engine gets an almost 3 horsepower head start on every other bike. It sounds great, doesn't it? But guess what? No matter what level rider you are, the clutch won't stand the test of time. Stiffer springs will help, but the real fix is a complete Hinson or Recluse clutch, which will cost about $1,000. The rigid aluminum chassis is very busy under the load of the added horsepower. The forks are mediocre. Finding good balance between the front and rear can become a full-time job, especially as the track changes over the course of the day. The 2017 through 2019 chassis is very hard to find a comfortable setting on. This has a lot to do with the Honda engineers' selection of the Showa fork valving, chassis rigidity, shock linkage rising rate, borderline front end geometry, and a stink bug stance. The CRF 450 is fun, fast, and exciting. It is heavy at 238 pounds, but feels light in the air. On the downside, control is hard to come by on a bike that is loose on exit, prone to breaking the rear wheel loose on corner exit, and needs 108 millimeters of sag to bring it into balance. 6th place, Suzuki RMZ450. The 2019 Suzuki RMZ450 is 10% improved over last year's offering. The sad fact is that even if Suzuki's engineers could have made the 2019 Suzuki RMZ450 25% more rideable than last year's model, it still wouldn't be close to getting out of last place in the standings. It is that far behind the 8 ball. Suzuki made the 2019 RMZ450 a much more rideable bike than the 2018 by trying to make the rear shock more responsive to bumps, but it has a long way to go. What would Suzuki need to do to change their fortunes in the 450 class? The RMZ 450 has to lose buku pounds. It needs to drop 18 pounds to match the KTM, add electric starting, get rid of the weird BFRC shock, design a totally new engine, build a clutch that maximizes power, and find engineers and test riders who prioritize balance over partial fixes. The MXA test riders didn't mind riding the 2019 Suzuki RMZ 450, but not a single test rider would choose to race it. It is the heaviest, slowest, and twitchiest bike on the track. It makes the least horsepower, has a marginal clutch, and the worst rear shock. Even its kickstarter design has flaws. The best thing about the 2019 RMZ 450 is the way the power is delivered. It is spot on in the middle and makes the meager output much more effective and usable than the numbers would predict. But as a budget racer, it features the lowest out-the-door price of all the 2019 450s, but it also has the lowest resale value. This is just a tip of the iceberg, and the information we have is in our 2019 450 shootout that's in the magazine. So check it out in the December issue of MXA. If you haven't seen all the 2019 MXA first ride videos, click the thumbnail now.